warmongers and gentlemen. This is back in March, of course, but I felt I should talk about this. Been meaning to, but never ever get around to it. It's in the queue with a lot of other stuff. Senator Rand Paul attempts to stymie NATO from adding more members that these United States, and I have the roll call votes and all relevant links below, adding more members that these United States will have to protect should they pick a fight with a larger foe, or a larger foe engages in quote-unquote saber-rattling. Today, again, this is back in March, U.S. Senator Rand Paul voted against a cloture motion, along with Senator Mike Lee, the only two, ratifying the accession protocol for Montenegro to become the 29th member of NATO. Dr. Paul said, he's a real doctor, by the way, not a fake doctor, quote, "There's no national security interest that an alliance with Montenegro will advance. If we invite Montenegro into NATO, it will be a one-way street, with the U.S. committing to defend yet another country and you, the taxpayer, being stuck with the bill. Even the advocates of Montenegro joining NATO admit as much," end quote, stated Dr. Paul on the Senate floor. Before the cloture vote, Dr. Paul attempted to uphold the Constitution by introducing, and this is important because since World War II, the executive branch has been running absolutely roughshod over Congress's powers to declare war. Before the cloture vote, Dr. Paul attempted to uphold the Constitution by introducing an amendment to prevent U.S. troops from being committed to defend Montenegro in an Article 5 situation without Congress first passing a declaration of war. You can read the amendment, which I've linked to, which the Senate refused to consider because they're mostly warmongers. And they collect allies like people collect Facebook friends. Montenegro would fail to meet the standard repeatedly set by President Trump that NATO members should pay their fair share, as the country would not be able to meet the guideline to spend a minimum of 2% of its GDP on defense by 2024. While the Senate is being urged to quickly act, the matter is far from settled within Montenegro's own borders, with a 2016 opinion poll in Montenegro revealing that only 46.5% of the public supports NATO membership. And yes, the U.S. still shoulders the brunt of the burden when it comes to NATO spending among active members. When one considers that all these conflicts aren't anywhere near our yard, the disparity becomes larger. Senator John McCain, senile idiot, Arizona, went ballistic over Rand Paul. You know, Rand Paul dared, McCain was looking for unanimous consent, and Rand Paul said, no. And McCain went and had a freaking fit over this, claiming and frothing at the mouth fashion like Hillary Clinton, because when you have no arguments, you just do this, claiming and frothing at the mouth fashion that Rand Paul is working for Vladimir Putin. So if you don't want to start a nuclear war with Russia, you're probably working with Putin. By golly. No, Mr. McCain, I think you, as well as anyone else who voted to add Montenegro to NATO, and that's all of you senators except for Paul and Lee, I think you, as well as anyone else who voted to add Montenegro to NATO, was working for the military-industrial complex and a colonial U.S. foreign policy, period. How many countries do you think we should be obligated to defend? Countries that will spend a pittance of what we spend on our global military footprint before you believe enough is enough. Senator John McCain is the epitome of everything that is wrong with the U.S. Senate and America. He is a disgrace to every living organism on the planet and should be ashamed of himself. This man is lower than a sack of dung because dung has a use: fertilizer. Keep in mind there are a lot of NATO members, and again, check out the links, you'll find all this out. This is the same situation with the United Nations, where we foot most of the bill for a lot of the countries that we give aid to hate our guts. That's just hilarious. Keep in mind there are a lot of NATO members that spend diddly squat on defense, especially when one measures those dollars per capita. John McCain would call this building bridges and protecting allies. The founders would call it entangling alliances. I am disheartened that only two senators, again Paul and Lee, from Kentucky and Utah, voted against this. As you can see, the rest of the Senate has a global policeman mentality. the worst case scenario for these United States is being dragged into another conflict. Best case scenario is we just keep sending money over there and don't have to commit ourselves to another war. I think that's okay with most folks in Washington. That is being dragged into a conflict. I think that's okay with most folks in Washington, as they think the U.S. can spread democracy in quotes, by the sword and cure every diplomatic ill. Not one Democrat stood up and said, I don't think we need to keep expanding NATO membership. Let Canada come to Montenegro's aid. Let Norway do it. Although NATO contributions are a drop in the federal spending bucket, like many other things, but they add up. It's that entangling alliance mentality that causes the U.S. to spend enormous amounts on defense, much of it not anywhere near U.S. soil or having any national security interest to the U.S. Europe is wealthy enough, they have enough manpower. If there's to be a counterbalance to Russian and or Chinese aggression, let Europe and Asia spend the money and manpower to do that. The U.S. is only burying itself deeper in debt and starting a lot of conflicts that do not end well. You've been warned. Lastly, if I had one wish right now, I would wish that the Senate would vote to expel John McCain like a person would expel vomit after a long night of drinking, because John McCain is a scumbag. The man is evil. The man is immoral. He's an egotist. He's a horrible legislator. He's a career politician. He's a dirtbag. And I've had about enough of him, and I really wish the Senate would expel him like someone would expel dung after lunch, because that's exactly what he is, and that's exactly what I think of him. So your little charade, Senator McCain, that Rand Paul's working with Vladimir Putin because he doesn't want to add. Why don't we just add the whole damn world to NATO? Then we would have peace, wouldn't we? So this is just the globalist, militaristic, colonialist mindset that the U.S. has been engaging in since World War II ended. And it's a pity that only 2 people dared stand up, and one guy had a freaking autistic fit when someone dared question this, that it just couldn't get ramrodded through just like that. And they had to waste some time on taking some votes. So God bless you, Rand Paul, for doing your job. And John McCain, yeah, that's it. That's all I got to say about him. Have a nice day. You've been warned.